Well, I'm here with my good friend, George McClelland, my long-time friend. How long have we been friends?
Since you were first came into the presbytery, which was 2000 and what? When was your first year?
It's a long time ago. 2009, was it? 2009.
2009.
Yeah, so...
It would be because I came to Tandragee in 2008.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a long friendship and a good friendship.
Yeah.
So it has.
Yeah.
I've asked George here today to maybe give us a little bit of perspective on living through a bereavement, living with loss, and how your faith played a role in all that.
Yeah.
So, your story, George, you lost your dear wife.
Yeah. 2011, November 2011.
Yeah.
But it goes back to 2010, February 2010.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about Judith?
Yeah, Judith and I married in 1979. I was punching way above my weight, but anyway, the Lord brought us together, and that was great. And the girls then arrived in 1982, 84 and 86.
As a minister's wife, how was Judith?
She was totally with me as far as even in our days of going out with each other.
Right.
She knew then that my banking days would come to an end at some stage, and that eventually the Lord was leading me into ministry, and that she was very happy with that, and very capable girl would threw herself into wherever we would be going anyway. She was totally committed to the work of Christ, and that's been very helpful, to know that you have a wife who is backing you fully, and ready to be part of the work of within the church, wherever that might be. And so whenever we went to Napan, Lislunia and Middletown, Judith had the running of 3 PWs, one in each place.
My wife complains about running one.
Judith had 3, and that was 3 meetings in the month. So it was good, but it was tight enough, and they would have come together on occasions, but really it was 3 PWs that she had to deal with. And that no matter where she went, then she was involved in PW, and that was the centre of the women's ministry in many ways back in those days, and maybe women's ministry has taken a slightly different. There's maybe more one-to-one or small group ministries that many ministers' wives are involved with now. And Judith would have been okay with that, if she'd been about.
You really admire our wives. I mean, well, you were in the ministry much earlier than I was. Our kids were up, but you reared a family.
Yeah.
And so Judith, being a mother, being a wife, a housewife, being a minister's wife, huge, and a teacher as well. So huge demands on her time.
Yeah, and whenever I went into Boys Brigade work, she was teaching. She subbed most of the time, and it was while she was secondary trained. she really subbed in primary, and she did more work in primary than she did in secondary level. And she was able to have the breadth of knowledge that a primary school teacher needs to have, rather than honing in on just the one subject of geography. But she really enjoyed teaching the children in school and one thing or another. So whenever I went into Boys Brigade, we had a residential centre down in Larne, and it came to the bit where the cook, we no longer had someone to cook, and Judith said she would do it to tie us over. Well, she did that as well as teaching more or less 5 days a week at that stage, and then she was responsible for throwing in the menu and ordering up what needs to be in the kitchen. And she would have been going down to Larne on a Friday night, preparing the supper, staying overnight, she came home on a Friday night, went back down the Saturday morning to cook a full breakfast, English breakfast, and she would have left the house early enough because breakfast would have been probably 8 o'clock or 8:30, and then she would have done a full day's work of preparing for lunch and evening meal and leaving the supper and coming home, going back on a Sunday morning to do another probably lighter breakfast but still involved cooking, and then doing a full Sunday lunch, which was a Sunday's lunch proper, of probably roast beef and roast potatoes, etc., etc., and then coming home in the afternoon and going out to church on a Sunday evening. And she did that for long enough.
Yeah.
So she went above
and beyond.
And the call of duty.
I didn't really know Judith that well, but that giving, sacrificial, generous way with her certainly struck me in the short time that I did get to know. Tell us a little bit, or tell us about the time that she got ill.
Well, February the 9th was a Tuesday, I think it was, and she had come home from school, and Tuesday was our midweek meeting night in Tandragee. And so we had been to that, we went out to that at 7:30, 8:15, and came home about 9:30 to find that the phone was full of messages from Sue, our middle girl, to say that she had got engaged, and so we jumped in the car to go down to Lisburn about 9:30 in the evening, and landed down there, and there was plenty of family fun, just and celebration at that stage. Came home about, I suppose, 10:30, 11 o'clock, went to bed, and about, I think it was shortly after 3 o'clock, Judith, unbeknown, I thought she was probably having a stroke, because just the shout, and her left arm, when I pulled her onto her back, her left arm dragged, and she wasn't making sense, and I thought, oh, here's a stroke. I phoned for the ambulance, and they came as quickly as possible, probably, and I phoned the girls, and I phoned my Judith's brother, Gilly, who was a doctor in A&E, and so he met us there as we arranged to go there. And so the whole shine of Susan's engagement was totally forgotten about, and the girls met us at the hospital, and I think the lads were all present as well.
This is the boyfriends?
Well, Christine had got married.
Christine was married.
Married in 2009. So they came, they lived in Craigavon at that stage. And so they came and met us at the hospital. And they did scans on Judith's brain, and they told me the outcome of those scans, but not to say anything to the girls during the night, that they would repeat the scans. Well, they found that there were lesions up in the brain, and that was coming from a main tumour, and that was probably in her left breast, I think.
What was your reaction, George, to that news?
Well,
your initial reaction?
I was. Both of us were probably stunned, because there was really no sign. Judith had been teaching, in school. She hadn't been sick. She hadn't, as far as there was no sign. She hadn't felt unwell. Judith would have been very careful about all of that. Judith's mum had breast cancer, and she would have been greatly taken up with that, So it was very much a surprise to us, and just stunned that this was happening. And then when they confirmed to us, and reality hit in, and we informed the girls, and of course that was just not the end of the world, but it was. It certainly knocked our family sideways.
Some people, their experience, they go through a range of emotions in getting news that you got. Were there any other emotions that followed on from that initial shock?
I honestly don't think so. I think probably going through my head was that the Lord knows all of this that's going on, and the Lord is still in control. And certainly Judith and I had just a one conversation when the girls were away, just about where things were, and I remember saying, and this is still very much in my mind, just saying to her, I could be knocked down by a bus, or I could have an accident going home and could be away before, but sure, any worry that we have will not bring extra minutes or extra years, and so the best thing for us was to leave it in the hands of the Lord, and that we would be content in that, and that was very definite, and in that I rested, that no matter what the medics said,
okay,
that we were still in the hands of the Lord,
okay,
and that was the best place for us to be. And no matter how much worry we would have put into the situation,
yeah,
there was nothing, we weren't gaining on that. So resting in the Lord that He would take us through.
You moved from there to down the road becoming Judith's carer.
Yeah.
Describe that and how you felt about that.
Well, I suppose the initial diagnosis, they were saying that Judith didn't have very long. They really only given her months because of they didn't catch the cancer early enough, that it was now into the brain. So there's no surgery, and so it's just a maintenance that was going on, and that she would receive radio treatment and then chemo treatment. And the other thing was that she, in dealing with this situation, the surgeon that would have doing any surgery came in to see her and just said that there wouldn't be any surgery, but had she any pain? She said yes, down her left arm. So they had that x-rayed and found out that she had actually broken bone in the seizure. The muscles contracted and out. And so for 6 weeks, this was her illness, the broken bone. And I'd said to Judith, you know, how are we going to cope with this? And she says, I'll cope because the girls are there and we'll be a family together. So for 6 weeks, it was the broken arm issue, and then going down to the hospital for the first batch of radio treatment. I'll never forget this, making the approach to the hospital. Judith said, I'm sick now, aren't I? You know, so yeah, but she coped with all of that. And I must say now, the hospital and the medical care that she received, and from the time that she met her consultant to do with the chemotherapy, she responded very well to that. And so there wasn't that much care at that stage. While they said she would be months, and then we said to them about Sue getting married, and they said, well, if you wanted Sue to get married with Judith there, I said, what about September? And they said, no, you'd need to bring that up. I said, June, you'd need to bring that up. So they were saying really, this is now February, and they were saying now, you know, sort of April time, that's the time that you really need to be thinking about a wedding. So Sue, from the stage of nothing, organised a wedding because she wanted Jude to be there, and so our wedding was arranged within 13 weeks. And then, and Jude was able to be at that wedding. We arranged the wedding to be at Tandragee, so it was all local. She didn't have anywhere far to go. She was able to walk over to the church. The reception was in Seago, and so and they provided a room that she could go and lie down. And we came home that evening, and we had to chase Judith to bed. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and she was buzzing just with the excitement of the whole day. And so she was great that day. Heather had certainly had her keeper. Graham and Heather were eventually going to get married, and Jude was so well by the August that they decided to get married. So they got engaged in August time, and then Heather arranged another wedding within 13 weeks.
So that's 2 weddings.
2 weddings,
oh.
and a wedding already in August 2009, and then a wedding in May 2010, and a wedding in November 2010. So it was it was good going. And Judith, with the chemo, was in good form, and was looking well, and was walking about, and one thing and another, and so she was okay, and that was good. And each of the weddings that in the May time and November, she really was in good form. And then by that stage, Christine was expecting first grandchild in March 2011, and I think Judith set her sights on March 2011. That was a goal that she was going to, you know, and she was determined to be there for that. And thankfully, while the medics people said really very short time, it was comforting to know that the Lord was sparing her through all of these things.
It sounds very much like God's hand was upon this whole
without any
illness.
shadow of a doubt. And there was this, people were praying for us, and we knew that, and I sent out prayer letters frequently, and Nehemiah 8 and 10 was just a great verse. Some of the I rested on the promise within that verse, which says
Nehemiah 10 is
8 and 10, the joy of the Lord is your strength. And without doubt, that was so helpful for us.
Did you feel carried in that time?
Without any shadow of a doubt. That verse, which we put our trust in, and that we were able to be a family, we were able to do things, and it was coming from a strength that I didn't have, and so the more I enjoyed the Lord, more joy that I had in knowing the Lord, that He was keeping us, that He was providing for us, that He was surrounding us, then the strength to cope for each day was there.
Well, George, it seems to me very evident that God's hand was upon you, was upon your family during this period of Judith's illness. Judith passed. What date was the funeral?
She died on the 25th of November,
2011.
Yeah.
So since the 25th of November 2011, you have been, I suppose, living with loss is one term you could put it.
Yeah.
How's that been? How's life been? Tell us for the benefit of our listeners, some of the more difficult times, and then tell us where maybe some of the times where you felt blessed of God.
Yeah. So after Judith's death, I took some time off. I had worked up until the point where I knew that I could leave Judith and come back. I could do a bit of work and come back. But there was a point then that I knew that Judith was needing more care, and that was just for about a month or so just before she died. But anyway, the Lord was with us there. Then I decided to come back, I suppose, Christmas morning.
You came back to work Christmas morning?
Came back to work Christmas morning, and I decided then to try and do that short service, and the family, all the girls were, and the husbands and all were there at that particular stage that morning.
So that was really only a month, really?
That was, yes, yeah.
Was that long enough?
I'm not too no, it probably wasn't in hindsight. Now, to get through that service, I had tipped off a certain young assistant minister called Seamus Burke to come and be in the congregation, so that if
yes, I remember that. Actually, I'd forgotten that. If I was broken down, you were to take over. I had probably a very good sermon prepared for that.
I could well believe it. So with that safety net, I got through that service anyway, and started back to work until February, and I was doing an evening service, and there was something just not right, and I had to cut the service short. And lo and behold, I called my GP, and she came down. Very good of her to come down and to be with me, and she immediately just put me off work again. I hadn't noticed really the adrenaline had stopped, obviously, and the stress of Judith's illness just had crept up on me at that stage, and I had come back to work probably too early, and then that just blew up in my face, and I had to take time off again. And I'm thankful for that, but I hadn't realised, and I must say that I'd be very wary. That was a lesson taught to me, that I look out for people now, who've come through bereavement, that if they've been very much involved, if it's been a long time working with, caring for a loved one, that they just don't know what's going to hit them whenever. I must say that was a good teacher. So I think that what I found was that on something would come out of the blue. I'm not, whether it was a line of a hymn that we were singing, or if I was just talking to somebody and they hadn't known and Judith's name was mentioned, and so it sneaked up on me from time to time, and that I found hard to cope with.
What was it? Here's a question I want to ask you. Is it better for people to talk about a loved one, or is it better that they avoid the conversation altogether?
No, I'm a great believer in talking about the person that has gone. To talk about Judith, to talk about her with the girls, and her family, Gilly and sister-in-laws Pamela and Rosalind, and Granny was alive still at that stage, Judith's mum, and just to talk about it, was a great help. And since retiring in 2016, I went back then to Lisburn to the wee home that we had there, and I evicted then my middle daughter out of the house, so that I could live there. But I had all these photographs of family and friends and families, photographs of Judith years gone back during her illness, and so what was I going to do with these? And so I put these up on the wall, and I have, when you come in through the door in my home, the hallway is filled with pictures of everybody, pictures of Judith.
I've seen that wall, and that's a wonderful thing when you walk in through the door.
So good,
you have
so good. And I've specifically put up times when Judith wasn't looking well at her best, but that's just a good therapy for me, and it's just a reminder of the folks who've been there for us and to be thankful to God, for the 3 years that we had together before she passed away. So it is good just to remember her and talk about her from whenever I get the opportunity, because I think it's part of my therapy.
From and we'll maybe close with this, George. from a perspective of faith, now you're a minister, but from what I'm a minister, from what I know of the ministry, being a minister doesn't give you any advantage over the struggles and trials of life when they come. Trials and difficulties and pressures and problems come to ministers just every bit as much as they do to any other person.
Yeah.
So what would you say, what difference has your faith made in this post-era, this post-Judith era?
Well, I suppose faith in Jesus is just common sense, because with a faith in Jesus, it makes sense to life. It gives me a purpose. It gives me a hope. It gives me a reason for living every day. It gives me just the Christian life puts everything into place. So no matter if it's a death of a loved one, or losing a job, or losing a home, or whatever the situation, we're called to cope with that. And so many people in this world don't have a hope. They've really nothing to guide them or to, and so they're empty. But for my life, Jesus was my saviour from 11, and now I haven't always been on the top of the world with that, but to know that Jesus has me in the palm of his hand, and that he is still there no matter what tragedy comes my way, to know that I'm still cared for and loved by, and that he will bring me home, and that whenever I leave this world, whenever that one might be, to renew friendship and fellowship with Judith, with my mum and dad, with Judith's parents, and all the saints that have gone before. That is the hope that I have. So to have Jesus in your life, to know that he is the saviour of your life, that he has dealt with your sin, and that he presents you faultless before the throne, that makes sense to me. So no matter what the tragedy, whether it is coping with a cancer now, or coping with a job loss or whatever, that makes sense to have trust in the Saviour.
George, I want to thank you for opening your heart, telling your story, and I trust it has meant someone to those who are listening here today. God bless you, brother.
Thanks very much indeed. Thanks, Judith.